Good morning and welcome to the Metal Collector. Today's video will be about the Swedish true metal band Hammerfall. Stay tuned. Welcome once again. Like I said, Hammerfall is on the program today. The band was one of my favorite bands from around 97 up till, I don't know, 2004, something like that. That will mean that I don't consider them to be one of the favorite bands anymore, unfortunately, because we'll get to that in a little bit. I'll try to make a short video today, so I'll just keep the stories down. I think what Hammerfall do today, the last couple of albums, has been a little bit, I would say, a little bit boring, a little bit too polished, and they are missing the magic from the old first, especially the first three albums. I'll tell you a little story now about how I was introduced to Hammerfall, and then we'll see what I have in the collection. In 97, a friend of mine bought a Danish magazine called Metalized, and in that edition he bought, there was a review of Glory to the Brave, the first album. It got 10 out of 10, and as you could see on the picture also in the magazine, it was about, this screams of the 80s. And he knew I was into this sort of stuff, and he said, check these guys out, they're a new band from Sweden, and they apparently play 80s metal. So I ran down to the local record store, and he, the owner had got this piece home, and I listened to it, gave it a spin, and the first song, the Dragon Lies Bleeding, the first song, I was just hooked immediately. I love that song, and the Metal Age followed up, and I bought the album. So, and it soon became one of my most played albums in my collection at that time, and I had found one of my new favorite bands. I love this album, still to this day. I really do. It's a classic. So the first item in my collection will just go on now. This is the CD version of Glory to the Brave. There was also a single coming out in that time for the title track, Glory to the Brave. There is especially Ravenlord, the song Ravenlord, which is a cover song of Stormwitch. A great cover song, great cover tune. At this time, Hammerfall had a guitar player, is still in the band, Oscar Dronjak, and the vocalist Joachim Kantz. Those two are the main motors of that band. They have been since the first album up till the latest, Built to Last. And you could say those two are running that band. But in the old days, they also had a third person helping them out on the songwriting. And that was Jesper Strømblad from In Flames. He's not in Flames anymore, but he is a great songwriter. Also did a lot of good stuff for In Flames. I dig the old stuff for that band as well, not so much into the new one. So I wouldn't say it's because of Jesper Strømblad, but perhaps his role in the whole songwriting, both with Hammerfall and In Flames, perhaps there is a connection, I don't know, but he was helping the guys out writing songs for this, in this period of Hammerfall. So, the Glory to the Brave, special shaped as a razor blade. I think this is very cool, especially when it got out. I was just like, wow. Any special shaped CDs back then was just, okay, what is going on? I catch them live in Denmark at the Roskilde Festival just before they released the next album, which I unfortunately hadn't been able to find at that time. So, but I got it shortly after, and also the single for Heeding the Call. The single also contains the Eternal Dark, a picture cover, also great cover tune, and some live stuff. And then came Legacy of Kings, containing my favorite song. Heeding the Call is my favorite song with Hammerfall, but this version on the single is a little bit different from the studio version. But this, also the whole album in itself, it's brilliant. It's as great as the first one, perhaps even a little bit better because you can hear the evolution from the first album to this. This is a little bit more fulfilled in some way, but still, the first album and this are equally good, I would say. At this time, they also released a VHS tape, The Symbols of Heavy Metal, the First Crusade. That was that was the title. And back in these days, like you know, when you had to get something, when you had to see some live stuff or music videos with a band, either you have to have something on your TV, some channels. But in Denmark at that time, we didn't have that many channels. We had MTV, and they had Headbangers Ball from the 90s, and also Super Rock, I think was the name of the show. And they also showed some heavy metal music videos, but there wasn't that much of metal in the TV in Denmark anyway. So you have to buy VHS, or when the multimedia section on CDs became popular, you could also see some music videos here. I can't remember the next VHS tape when it was released. It was also around this time, 2002. Then it will, okay, I will show you this because the second VHS tape they did, the Templar Renegade Crusades. So metal. And the single I Want Out, the old Halloween classic, also containing a song of Rainbow, Man on the Silver Mountain. Kai Hansen is also participating in this version. He has a guest appearance, that's the name. A great single. And then the third album came, Renegade. And I would say this is just as great as the first the first two albums. This is the third one. This is just as great as the first two. I really love this album, and yeah, the special shape again, special shape version of the album, limited edition, also with the razor blade, and of course the single to Renegade. There is Head Over Heels, among other things, a cool Accept cover. Okay. The single Always Will Be. This is a limited edition with only 2 tracks on it. They also did another digipack that has 4 songs. Breaking the Law is the last song here. A Judas Priest cover. Not an overwhelming cover, but they have it. Now, at this time, Hammerfall, I was so much into Hammerfall, and I dig everything they released. I got it. Oh yeah, before I forget it, also a piece I'm pretty fond of, the picture vinyl of Renegade. Again, you can see that the band started out on a big label, Nuclear Blast, since they had money to release all these funny kinds of things. This is really something. I think I've played it 1 time. Not more. Like I was about to say, this is what I would consider the best period of Hammerfall's career. The first 3 albums and all that other stuff they released. And something happened. And again, I will not say it's because of Jesper Strømblad's participation, but perhaps it has something to do with it, because this was what he was involved with in Hammerfall. And after this, up till now, they also had, you can see, you can recognize the artists behind stuff like this. Andreas Marshall, he has done lots of great metal artwork, also for Blind Guardian, among other bands. And he had done mostly everything for Hammerfall up to this point. They changed the artist to a guy called Samwise, or the artist called Samwise. And they also changed the songwriting process, so it was only Oscar Dronjak and Joachim Kanz who was the main writers in the band. I don't know if again, I will not debate on it has something to do, but I just think it's a little bit peculiar. After Strømblad's exit as a songwriter, the band became a little bit, in my opinion, too polished and a little bit, in some ways, a little bit boring, I'm afraid to say. But let's continue. Hearts on Fire, the single, and you can see it's a new guy drawing the cover. This is the Samwise. Yeah, we're gonna make it. Twisted Sister cover. Crimson Thunder came out, the album. This is the Digi version. This is the fourth album. I think it's an okay album. When it just was released, I found the sound was a little bit very polished, a little bit more heavy, but there was something about this that I found. It was also the way they had put the songs on, where there is something about this album, but so I was a little bit disappointed when it came out. Now today I think it's a good album, not as good as the first three, but it is a good album. And the last final really good album Hammerfall did. Then they released a live album, a double live album, and I'm very happy that they also got The Dragon Lies Bleeding on here. I catch them live again, back in these days after the Renegade at Wacken, the Wacken Festival. One of my all-time greatest concert experiences. That was holy shit. They played good. There was One Crimson Night also got a DVD edition where you could see their concert. They played good. It was also a good concert. Not as good as the Wacken because you were there. A little promo thing to keep your car on. Yeah, never used, of course. Now we enter the newer era of Hammerfall. Again, Samwise are doing the artwork, Bloodbound single, and this really shows us and tells us what we can expect from the next album. And I was not impressed. And when this chapter 5, Unbent, Unbound, Unbroken came out, I don't know what had happened. It wasn't the Hammerfall I knew. I was so disappointed, unfortunately. So they have a couple of Take the Black is perhaps my favorite song for from this album. And even though it's cool that Venom's Kronos from Venom is guesting on Nights of the 21st Century, but it cannot save the song and it cannot save the album. It's not in any way as good as the first stuff they did. The next album we got the Natural High single. And then came, I would consider this to be the low point of Hammerfall's career, Threshold. I recently heard this album again. I do sometimes to give it a chance to grow on me, but I just it can't grow on me. I really find this to be a very boring album. I'm afraid to say it. And at this point, like I said, I was a huge Hammerfall fan and got everything, and followed the band, were very excited when I heard there was some new stuff going on. At this point, they had just disappointed me twice, big time, especially with Threshold. So my interest for the band it had run down into the drain, unfortunately. But I did buy the next album, No Sacrifice, No Victory, which is a little bit more, it's a little bit more experimenting in some ways. It's definitely better than Threshold, but it's not a great album. And after this, I just had, I didn't even notice when the next album, Infected, I didn't even notice they had released that before a year after or something. So, and I've listened to it on the net. It's an okay album, better than Threshold, but the last two, Revolution and Built to Last, again, it's still in the same lane with this polished, all too polished and a little bit boring. They are missing something. Again, not saying it's Jesper Strømblad, but perhaps it is. The last thing in the collection is this Joachim Kahn's solo album, which sounds like a little bit of the newer Hammerfall stuff. So one of my all-time, or not all-time, but one of my old favorite bands, unfortunately, disappointed me enough to make me stop collecting their stuff because yeah, I've listened to them. Now I listen to the band before I buy it, and the last three albums, I don't need them in my collection. It would only be to say I have the complete Hammerfall collection, but I'm not a millionaire, and I also buy a lot of other stuff, so I would rather save some of the money to buy more interesting stuff. Hopefully Hammerfall will be back one day with something exciting again. I really hope they will go back to the roots and try to make stuff like that, because that was really amazing. And till this day, I will still consider Glory Through the Brave, Legacy of Kings, and Renegade to be some of the best, some of the best albums ever released. It is really those three albums. If you don't have them in your collection and you like power metal, heavy metal, or true metal, like it would be called, then shame on you, because those three albums are classics. I love these albums to this day. And again, I put them on once in a while and give them some respins, and my nostalgic ear is just like, oh yeah, my good old Hammerfall. So, but thank you for watching. That was my Hammerfall collection. I don't think I have more lying around. So thank you for watching, and have a great day. Subscribe, like, comment, do whatever you want. Here's to you and Hammerfall. Yeah.